In the animal kingdom, gorillas often greet each other with a hug. Certain species of penguins propose to their partner with a pebble. Female lions do all the hunting for their family. Orcas live with their parents their whole lives. While every family is different and every family is unique, the truth is, they're still our fam.
What's up, guys? We are starting a brand new series called Fam. I want us to spend some time talking about family because we are getting more family time than ever before. And for some of you, it might be going great, smooth like butter. But for others of you, it might be like arguments and conflict every single day. And you're like, I can't believe we've still got like a month and a half of summer to go because this is not going great. I've never been so excited to go back to school in my life. So for me, I'll say that I love my family, but there are a bunch of weirdos. Guess that explains a lot. So, every family has its quirks. My parents and my brother are truly some of the most interesting, fun people that I have ever been around. And now that we're all adults, we typically get along pretty great. However, I do remember times when it was not that way. Not at all. So now here's the thing. I know not everyone likes being around their family. And that's because family can be stressful. It can be unpredictable and even exhausting at times. Like fighting and then health issues and divorce or people lying or rules that you don't understand and yelling, and all of these things can make family a lot more. Have I been there? Now, let's add faith to those potentially already stressful family dynamics. Faith, which is what each of us believes or doesn't believe, can make things even more complicated with our family. Because faith and our beliefs hit at the core of us, at the very deepest part of what we believe. So when we're not on the same page as our family, those disagreements can be really hurtful. Disagreements around faith can cause a lot of tension in your family. For example, maybe you've experienced some of this yourself. Maybe your faith is really important to you, and what you believe influences the way that you live, and the way that you live impacts your family. And that's complicated because you may have a parent or a step-parent or a sibling who doesn't see faith the same way that you do. Maybe they don't consider themselves Christians. Or maybe they are Christians, but they don't seem to take it as seriously as you do. And honestly, you're not sure if you're supposed to talk about any of this faith stuff with them at all. You don't want them to feel like you're forcing your faith on them or telling them what they need to do or believe. But you also don't want to totally avoid talking about your faith because it's important to you. And shouldn't you be able to talk about things that are important to you with your family? Or maybe for you, faith impacts your family in a different way. Because in your home, maybe it's your mom or a foster parent or a grandparent who is really into this whole Jesus stuff. And they love reading their Bible and doing everything church related. And they think that you should love all of that too. But if you're honest, you're just not that interested. Church might feel like a chore to you, and even right now, maybe you're only watching this because an adult told you you had to. For you, differences when it comes to faith makes things in your family feel a lot more complicated. Maybe you aren't really sure how faith and family mix. Maybe you've just kind of always believed what your parents told you, and you just kind of went along with that. But as you get older, you're not sure what you really think. But still, you're trying to honor your parents, so you kind of keep going through the motions. But inside, you're struggling because you've got a lot of question marks about maybe what you believe. But you feel like maybe you can't talk to your family about it. And that's making things at home feel a little bit more stressful because you're afraid that if you do bring it up and if it's any different from what they believe, then there's going to be conflict. And that's really stressful, particularly when we don't feel like we're on the same page as our family regarding faith. Differences in faith can create a lot of tension in families. It can leave us feeling like we've got to choose between having a faith that is identical to that of our family members just to keep the peace, or voicing our differing beliefs, and then we fear that that's going to disrupt the family dynamic. We fear that if we believe something different, that is going to create conflict. And I can tell you, I have experienced this firsthand. My parents, my brother, and I are all over the map when it comes to faith. I love them very much, but our differences in terms of what we believe can be a real point of tension in our family. So, how do we make sure that our faith is actually helping to make our families better rather than just becoming yet another thing to argue about? So the good news is I have an answer to that question. Well, it's not exactly like my answer. Actually, it is much better. It's something that Jesus said. So a guy named John, who is one of Jesus's closest friends and followers, wrote this down so that we could learn from it today. And before I tell you exactly what Jesus said, I want to give you a little bit of context about what was happening when he said this. Now, just before Jesus was going to be arrested and eventually killed on the cross, he called all of his close friends and followers together for a meal. This meal is commonly referred to as the Last Supper. Now, apart from his actual family, like Mary and Joseph, these would have been the friends that were close to him, so close that they would have been like family to him. And even though Jesus had warned them that he was going to die, they had a hard time kind of wrapping their brains around that. It's like, okay, I don't really understand what you mean. It didn't click with them that this was going to be their last meal with Jesus. To them, they're just doing what they had kind of always done as like a group of friend family. They're sitting around a table, they're sharing a meal, they're talking about life. But because Jesus knew that how things were about to go, how things were going to change, he wanted to share a few important words with the people that were closest to him. So at that dinner, he dropped this important nugget of truth on his friends that were like family to him. He said, "By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." That word disciples means to follow Jesus. So if you want people to know that you follow me, Jesus is saying people will know that you follow Jesus and that you believe in him by the way that we love one another. So if you want people to know that you're one of my followers, love other people really, really well. Jesus knew difficult times were coming. He knew that his friends would be scared and persecuted and even tempted to turn back on him and be like, I don't know who that guy is. Yet, when it all came down to it, Jesus took this one last opportunity to remind them that loving each other is the most important thing they can do. Loving each other is the way that they can show the world that they follow Jesus. Loving each other was the way that their faith is going to make an impact. And so, you know what? I think the same is true for our families. If we want our faith to do more than just create tension in our family, if we want it to actually impact our families for the better, then it's got to be about something other than just proving a point. It's not about convincing other people to believe the same thing or arguing with them about what you think is true and what you think is right. Our faith has to be about love. And that's what Jesus tells us, that if we want to be known as his followers, then we've got to be people that are about love. Loving your family is how faith can make an impact. Now, of course, this is not always easy. Loving your family the way Jesus asks us to can be really difficult. In fact, some days it might be the hardest thing that you feel like you're called to do. But I think Jesus knew that. I think that he knew that sometimes loving each other would be really hard. And I think that's why he didn't leave us to just figure it out all on our own. You know, a few years later, after Jesus had died and gone, been resurrected and then ascended into heaven, God led this guy named Paul to write a bunch of letters to churches to instruct and encourage them as they're growing in the faith. And they were living in a time after Jesus' death and resurrection. And honestly, most of them were a lot like us. They're trying to figure out, what is this whole faith thing? What does it mean to follow Jesus? And how does following Jesus impact the different parts of our lives? And so in one of his letters, Paul, he lays out this foundation for them and for for us about exactly what it looks like to love others. This is in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. He says, love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It's not proud. It does not dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices in the truth. It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes and always perseveres. So when Jesus calls us to love one another, this is what he's asking us to do: to be patient, kind, humble, respectful, selfless, to not get upset easily or to hold grudges, to protect and to trust and to hope and stick with the people around us, to love our family the way that Jesus calls us to love them. Rather than letting faith be a topic that drives a wedge between you and your family, let loving your family, despite the differences, be the way that faith impacts your family. Love is where it starts. No matter what you believe or what your family believes, when it comes to faith, this is something we can all do. We can all try to love the people in our family really well. If you're doing it because you believe in Jesus, that's great. But if you're not sure that you believe in Jesus, trying to love your family really well can keep you connected rather than letting your differences in faith divide you. And I think we can all agree that's the better way. So this week, here's what I want you to think about. What does it look like for you to really love your family well? We're reminded love is patient and love is kind. So, love in action this week could mean being patient and kind with the adults in your home. We're reminded that love does not boast and it's not proud. So this week, when you're talking with your family about your beliefs, particularly if they're different from the rest of your family members, do it in a way that's not arrogant. We're reminded that love does not envy, it doesn't dishonor others, it's not easily angered. So this week, try not to be jealous of what your siblings have. Try not to be rude to your mom. Try not to be hot-tempered and quick to react to your dad. Jesus says, they will know you are my disciples if you love one another. Because honestly, love is what changes people. Love is what faith is all about. And even if it doesn't change them, it will change you. By choosing to love your family really well, you're saying, I won't let our differences in faith drive us apart. Rather, love will be what unites us despite our differences. And that is what family is all about.